come up. He is our keynote speaker tonight. So everybody, the big red machine.
Thank you. Sit down, man. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You know, JTV is headquartered in Knoxville, right? After watching Mark Cochran and Tom Hatcher running around hawking jewelry, you guys have a calling, okay? I'd like to tell y'all a story. It's a little sad and a little edgy, but Mitch Ingram told me that this crowd would be okay with it. So, Mayor, this is on you. A husband was in an accident and hurt very badly, taken to the hospital. He died on the operating table, but the surgeons were able to resuscitate him. However, he never regained brain function. So doctors have to go tell his wife the condition that her husband was in. And obviously, she was distraught, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, my husband, no brainwave, no brain activity. My husband's brain dead. I don't know what I'm going to tell the rest of the family. We've never had a Democrat in the family before." Sorry. Mitch okayed it. It's a joke. It's also not true, actually. We make fun of Democrats, but they're not stupid. They're smart. They work very hard at this, the political stuff, the election stuff. They're organized. They're motivated. They are a threat. And as I am going to explain in a little while, within the Republican Party here in the state of Tennessee, I think we've also given them some opportunities and have committed some self-inflicted, unnecessary errors on our part. So before I get into that, I'd like to tell you all a little bit about myself, for those of you who don't know my story, and the reason that I got into politics and into government. So I was born in Madrid, Spain. My dad was in the Air Force. We came back to the States. I grew up in a small farm in Missouri. My family didn't have a whole lot. We got by. My dad's military retirement mostly. But I saw my mom and dad struggling, working very hard, but financially struggling. And for me, when I grew up, I didn't want to feel that my family was living paycheck to paycheck despite working so hard like my mom and dad did. After many failed endeavors in sports, I always wanted to be a professional athlete. And after a knee injury, which ended my football career, I fell into the world of professional wrestling. Greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I traveled the world, met some of the most amazing entertainers on the planet, entertained millions of people live or on TV, been touched people in ways that I never would have imagined, in ways I didn't think about until after I retired, actually. I was at Thompson Boyne Arena with my wife one night for a concert. We were in a concourse getting refreshments, and this lady comes up to me. She was wearing a University of Florida sweatshirt, which I know is the smartest thing to do in the heart of all country. But she pulls out her phone and shows me a picture. It was me and a young man in a hospital bed. I visited him in East Tennessee Children's Hospital. It's the last picture she'd taken while her son was still alive. And I realized that was the true gift that my wrestling career had given me. I've also been able to provide my family with a life that I wouldn't have thought possible. And that story is actually impossible in most places around the world. Because most places, where you were born is where you will end up. There is not the opportunity for economic advancement. I'm a product of the American dream, and I hold that very dear. And I realize it is constantly under threat, seems nowadays more so than ever before. So for me, getting into politics was just my attempt to protect and ensure that would go on. As Ronald Reagan says, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction, and I was going to do everything that I possibly could to make sure that we're not the generation that allows that to happen. So, and for me, the platform to keep the American dream alive is the Republican Party. That's why I ran for Knox County Mayor. 2018, was my first venture into elections and into politics. I won the Republican primary in Knox County in May of 2018 by 23 votes out of 40,558 votes cast. Everyone talks about that, but something else happened that night as well. When I was running for mayor, Republicans had a 10-1 advantage on Knox County Commission. We lost a seat, went to 9-2. Okay? 4 years later, I'm running again. Now this time I won by a landslide. I was not opposed. Problem was, I only got 24,000 votes. 16,000 people fewer voted in the Republican primary. And the reason for that was because you didn't have a bunch of important up-ballot, highly contested races like you did in 2018. My margin of victory dropped by 8 points. Went from 63% to 37% to 55-45. And it was the same way across the board, right? Well, a couple years later, we have another election, and this time, because of lower turnout, we lost another Republican seat on Knox County Commission. So now we're 8-3. We also, so first 2022 was the first year that we had partisan school board races. We had a chance to pick up a school board seat. Now our school board is 5-4 Republican Democrat. We could have pushed that to 6-3. Keep in mind, for 18 months or whatever, we've been watching Loudoun County, Virginia, just do crazy things on their school board, right? I mean, it's making national news. And we couldn't pick up that seat. So we remain 5-4. So if something happens and we flip, Knox County schools could become like Loudoun County, Virginia. And again, part of the reason for that was low voter turnout among Republicans. And I can point to the statistics. In 2022, in that primary, 30% fewer Republicans voted. 1% more Democrats actually voted. And that's what translated in the general election. Okay? So I can point and say it was because of low Republican turnout in those elections. But I would also argue it was because our party did not coalesce around candidates after they won the primary election and moved into the general election. And that's something, unfortunately, I see happening around the state. We can fight like cats and dogs in the primaries, although I would caution people about going too negative because you're actually then doing the Democrats' work in the general election. But we can fight like cats and dogs in primaries. I mean, that's what it's all about. But the party has to coalesce around Republicans during the general election. Because a Republican is always going to be better than a Democrat. I remember talking with Bob Griffiths, who was former Congressman Jimmy Duncan's chief of staff, and I was complaining about a federal legislator from Tennessee, and they're way too liberal, they're Republican, but they're way too liberal. And he said, well, here's the deal, kid. They're gonna vote with us 80% of the time. Do you want someone that's only gonna vote with us 20% of the time? Completely changed my perspective. And I was like, that's a really good point, Bob. No wonder you're a congressional chief of staff. But sometimes it seems we've forgotten Reagan's adage that someone that agrees with us 80% of the time is not our enemy. He's our friend, and he's our ally. We need to remember that, because if we don't, we are doing the Democrats' work for them. And again, we kind of see it happening around the state. We are incredibly blessed to live in the state of Tennessee. This state has it going on more so than anywhere else around the country. And it is because of conservative principles, but also effective governance. Ran into a friend of mine a while back, Colton Moore. He's a state senator from Georgia. He gained fame because he was leading the impeachment against Fannie Willis, who is the DA in Atlanta, who was basically trying to shaft President Trump. One of the many DAs trying to shaft President Trump. Got a lot of pushback from the party at that point. Colton was also calling out some corruption within the Republican Party. Got a lot of pushback. I ran into him and said, man, Colton, you'd fit right in up in Nashville. He's like, I'm an extreme conservative down here. I'd be a moderate up there. And that's true. We have great leadership across the state, great conservative leadership. It starts at the local level. Look at what you have here in Monroe County with my counterpart, Mitch Ingram. Does an outstanding job. Let's give him a round of applause. And folks, we have the best state legislature in the country. There's no doubt about that. Got Ray Russell, Tommy Hatcher, and my dear friend, Mark Cochran, who is the House Assistant Majority Leader, which is a really important position, by the way. Very fortunate to have him here in East Tennessee, and specifically in this district. The best legislature in the country deserves best governor in the country. And for me, that's Marsha Blackburn. Senator Blackburn has done a tremendous job of defending and promoting Tennessee conservative values in every position she's held, from state, as a congressperson, and then as a United States Senator. As a senator, she has been a strong ally of President Trump. She's helped usher through many of his appointments. Also, she's helped keep men out of women's sports, which is kind of important to me. I have 2 daughters. And one of my favorite things, actually, is she got a Supreme Court nominee to say they didn't know what a woman was. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing, actually, that person is now in the Supreme Court as well. So, I was back in Missouri a while back, which is my home state. I had been invited there to talk about our experience here in Tennessee without an income tax. Now, for those of us who grew up in Tennessee, who have lived here for a long time, we don't realize that most states do. I think there's only 8 that don't. So I got invited to talk to the legislature and to Governor Kehoe. And when I spoke with Governor Kehoe, he told me that when he walks into a room to recruit a business to his state, he is automatically behind all the states that don't have an income tax. That has made a tremendous difference in our state's economy and the quality of life for our people here. One of the primary reasons that we do not have an income tax in the state of Tennessee is Marsha Blackburn, who led the fight against that back in the early 2000s. While I was there in Missouri, though, it was pretty amazing to me speaking to their legislators who to a person said, we want to be like Tennessee. You guys are doing things the right way. Y'all, the rest of the country is looking at Tennessee as the place which has conservative, effective governance, and it works. Thanks, Michael. Thank you. With Marsha Blackburn as governor, we will be the country's conservative powerhouse. The leader, the beacon that the rest of the country looks to and says, they've got it going on. But the Republican Party, we have to support each other. Because if we don't, that opportunity to be, I think we're already the greatest state in the union, but that opportunity to just take us to the next level, right now it's like sand that can slip right through our fingers. And we can't allow that to happen because it is too important. It's too important for the state, and it's too important for this country. Thank you all so very much for having me here tonight. I appreciate it. And they're not playing today, but go Vols. Thank you.